Welcome to the Southern Nevada Dispatch Area Aviation and Briefing Guide. We put together this digital package to try and give you a better idea of what you're getting into before you get here. And you will have a sit-down briefing with the aviation manager once you arrive on site. Just due to the size of the area that the aviation manager is covering, this will give you a little bit of intel and should get you through until you're able to tie in with him. Throughout the PowerPoint here, there are numerous buttons you can click. They'll take you back to the index page, or like you can see on this first page here, there is a off-district resource check-in. You can click there. It'll take you directly to the Las Vegas Interagency Communications Center page, and from there you can check in with the district. The Southern Nevada Dispatch Area covers a pretty large chunk of ground, roughly 10.5 million acres, and on that ground there's a variety of different federal, state, and even military cooperators that manage the lands. I won't get into all of them here, but if you're interested, you can see all the different agencies that are covered under our dispatch area. Because of the size of the area and how we interact with the neighbors, we do have pretty good working relationships with the other districts and other communication centers around the Southern Great Basin. These are some of the common dispatch centers you may find yourself working out of, whether it's a short-term or long-term basis. If you do need to contact them, here's the numbers listed, and they can put you in touch with a specific person if you're looking to get a hold of them on that district. There are quite a few aviation facilities in Southern Nevada. These include some fixed-wing facilities such as Mesquite, North Las Vegas, Ely. There's some temporary bases such as Jean and Panaca. Then we also have some rotor-wing only areas such as the Logandale Fire Station. That does have lighting available for nighttime use. There is a Pahrump Fire Station and also a Red Rock Fire Station. Both of those have either helipads or gravel pads that are acceptable for landing helicopters on. Southern Nevada District Bureau of Land Management is one of the larger entities that's covered under Las Vegas Interagency Communications Center. It's a pretty large district, roughly 3.3 million acres. It has 3 different field offices. That includes Las Vegas Field Office, Red Rock Sloan Field Office, and the Pahrump Field Office. Some of the areas in the district are notable due to law enforcement activity and that's happened in the past and has potential to still happen in the future. So make sure you work with the duty officer or dispatch if you go into any of these areas, which could be Sunrise Mountain, Wetlands Park, Gold Butte National Monument, and the Jean Dry Lake. The United States Air Force Nevada Test and Training Range is one of the other really large entities that falls under our dispatch area. 2.1 million acres. We have, the BLM has primary suppression responsibility in the Test and Training Range, and with that said, there is restricted access for all air and ground resources. So before you go in, there's going to have to be security briefings, and you will be escorted the whole way. Again, access and entry is going to be coordinated between the BLM duty officer and the Air Force. We won't just go in there without them being aware of it ahead of time. There is pretty thorough briefings that are going to be on the hazards there, and that can include UXO, or unexploded ordnance, what the values of risk are, and also what the security is going to be prior to entering the gate. And again, you'll be escorted the whole time while within the NTTR. There's some political and local concerns to be aware of in Southern Nevada District. Won't get into the weeds too much. Number one takeaway from here is if you're having issues, I've listed the Southern Nevada District Duty Officer. The phone number for him is 702-515-5115. You can see a list of the priorities here. Number one, of course, is firefighter and public safety. And if you're in any kind of a situation where it doesn't feel right, just go ahead and back off, and we'll figure out how to approach it in a different way. There are some other things on there. That's really the number one. Just remember that we're public servants. We're here to serve, fulfill our mission, and also serve the public in the best way we can. So really be thoughtful of what your actions are and how you're interacting with locals, whether they like you or not. Always remain professional. All three field offices within the Southern Nevada BLM have some unique challenges with cultural and historical concerns that kind of affect how we do operations. They can include special status for lands, sensitive and endangered species or habitat, natural and cultural resources, critical watersheds, critical environmental concern areas, wilderness study areas, and natural conservation areas, and also some national monuments and historic mining districts. You will be provided with maps for all these. The district also has an excellent resource advisor program that are going to help you make decisions as ICs and firefighters out on the line. Before you do operate in any of these special status areas, make sure you're checking with dispatch and the duty officer. You can see on this slide there's a table for operating in any wilderness area or any of the special use areas. If you are in one of those areas, you can see on the list here along the top the area's name, and then along the side what activity, and then in the middle of it here you can see who can make a decision on whether or not that operation can be done. So make sure you know where you're at. Make sure you know what the plan or the mission is, and make sure you're notifying and requesting permission from the appropriate person. Throughout this briefing presentation, you'll notice there are in some areas some yellow arrows. These kind of note that this is a multi-page section. You can tap through these and it'll keep you within the section, all on the same topic, but you can go back and forth as needed. So this page here is just talking about, it's giving you some definitions for different types of equipment you might be operating in the wilderness, and make sure you're aware of these. Specifically for aviation resources, or folks on the ground that may be using aviation resources, you need to be aware of what the limitations are for helibases and helispots. Obviously using minimum impact suppression tactics, and then also when and where it's going to be appropriate to use fire retardant, and if that's not an option, just know that we can load water loads with any of our air tankers in the region. So the Spring Mountains National Recreation Area, there's 4 main wilderness areas within that. It's a pretty large chunk of ground. For 2020, all fires within this area are full suppression. That said, if firefighting resources are limited, we may modify that. If you're operating in the Spring Mountains National Recreation Area, just remember safety first. No wildland fire is worth a human life, and public and firefighter safety comes first all the time, every incident, every day. If you're in a situation where you feel safety is in question, consult with the IRP chief for how to properly refuse risk, communicate that with your supervisor, or look for another solution. The Spring Mountains National Recreation Area uses the same size up card as all the other Southern Nevada agencies. You can find that on the Las Vegas Interagency Communications Center website under publications, and later on in the slideshow I have direct links to that page, and I also have the login and password listed. If you do initial attack a fire in this area, you need to make sure it is turned into the SMNRA fire duty officer, and if you can't find that person, you should be able to turn it into the Southern Nevada District BLM duty officer. If you are in any of the 4 wilderness areas, you do need to request approval for all mechanized equipment, such as chainsaws, smoke jumpers, helicopters, and seats and air tankers. If you're outside of the wilderness, you don't need to slow down suppression efforts waiting for approval for any of those equipments. Just know that the duty officer and agency administrator will be working behind the scenes to obtain approvals. Here's some additional information for the Spring Mountains National Recreation Area. Number 1, request a fire investigator for all wildfires that could have been human caused. If it's in the wilderness, request a resource advisor for all wilderness fires. And additionally, even if you're not in the wilderness, the duty officer may send a resource advisor at his or her discretion if there's other natural resource concerns. And the duty officer should make you aware of any of those concerns. The READ has a specific checklist for the SMNRA, and they'll be taking care of that. Operations in the Mojave Desert have high potential really to exhibit extreme fire growth and extreme fire behavior, especially with the heat. We do get a lot of wind down here, and this year especially there's an abnormally high fuel loading of fine dead fuels. In addition to that, with these dry periods like we've had, the brush component can really start to carry fire, and we can get a lot of active fire behavior out of that as well. This Mojave Desert, it's really not a fire-adapted ecosystem, but we do have a lot of exotic vegetation and a lot of invasive fuels that have really altered fire behavior in the landscape. If you're working here, we really encourage you to safely and aggressively fight the fires. Obviously trying to minimize impacts from suppression actions, but you will have to be moving pretty quick here. The 3 priorities for fighting fire in the Mojave Desert are ensuring safety of firefighters and the public, minimizing acres burned or habitat loss through rapid fire suppression, and minimize suppression damage to resources. A couple takeaways also while fighting fire in the Mojave Desert. Really keep a heads up and look for opportunities to act aggressively and limit the spread of fire, and also look for opportunities to implement BMPs to minimize the damage to the resources from fire suppression. Another thing to note here is if you're an incident commander, you should not wait for resource advisors before implementing pretty aggressive suppression tactics, especially if it's during an initial attack. Obviously burning out, off-road driving, heavy equipment use, or virtually anything else we do to fight fire can have a really substantial impact on the landscape. But if you can use it and justify it by minimizing the number of acres burned, then use that as an appropriate tactic. If you're on National Park Service lands, the resource advisor must be consulted before using any heavy equipment or off-road driving. If it's in designated wilderness, all motorized equipment must be approved by the appropriate agency administrator. While you're in the Mojave, really got to constantly assess the fire situation, look at fire behavior, look at whether or not your tactics are working. And as soon as your tactics are working, or you've prevented really or retarded the rate of spread, stop any kind of tactics you're using that could be damaging habitat. And then also document any actions that are going to help facilitate post-fire rehab of your actions. And also, while you're there, really keep an eye on non-native organisms such as grasses, any kind of water creatures. Do whatever we can to stop the spread of those. While you're here working in Southern Nevada, obviously follow all your agency's policies on safety and risk mitigation. And specifically for aircraft, make sure that your pilots are adhering to duty day and flight time limitations. Make sure that your crews and your pilots are both aware of what the pumpkin times are for the area you're working in, and are really following by that. And if you do witness, or if you're involved in any kind of unsafe act, mechanical issue, near miss, incident with potential, make sure that you're running that up through the unit aviation manager, through the duty officer, and then that you're also filing a SAFECOM, so we can better track these issues. Again, touching on aerial hazards, the power transmission lines we have here just to support the Vegas area are very large. They're scattered all over the place. Some of the aerial hazards we have, they do range up to 1,000 foot above ground level, and then we have numerous ones between 200 to 500 feet that are scattered all over valley floors, mountaintops, ridges, etc. Really pay attention to where you're working. Do anything you can to mitigate risks to aircraft operations, and really focus on, if you're in helicopters, getting a good high-level recon in before you're dropping down to low-level flight. While you're in Southern Nevada, there's numerous aviation hazards that are all over the place. Everything from large towers to really large AC and DC power transmission lines going into and out of the Vegas area. I have a geo-referenced map of Southern Nevada that can be found at the first link. And then the second link has a aviation hazard map for the entire state. I would highly recommend, if you're here with an aircraft, have both of these installed on your devices or downloaded on your devices, and be checking them if you're going to be operating in an area. Southern Nevada really has a complex airspace situation. There are very large restricted airspace areas. There's quite a few military operating areas, and there's military training routes that fall outside of both of those. The main ones would be the NTTR restricted airspace, and that covers almost all of the airspace between US Highway 95 and Highway 93. The Desert Military Operating Area, or MOA, is located to the east of the NTTR restricted area. The Reveille MOA is to the north of the NTTR restricted area, all the way up to Highway 6. And then there's numerous military training routes and turning points that fall outside of those MOAs. Make sure you're aware of the restricted and special use airspace. We have provided you with flight hazard maps that are pretty clearly designated on there. And there's also additional links for all of our geo-referenced PDF maps for you to take a look at. Airspace management is of critical importance here. Just due to the nature of our fires, our TFRs go up and down very quickly for fires. We also have a variety of other activities in the Southern Nevada area, or really just Southern Great Basin area, that can be cause for TFRs. We have pretty frequent rocket launches. There's UAS operations that pop up, or it could be a variety of other causes. If you are here managing an aircraft, make sure you're checking for TFRs every single day. And I've put in here a link for SkyVector. If you don't have ForeFlight or any kind of other dedicated app, you can check there, and that will populate TFRs on a very quick basis. There's also numerous airfields in the Great Basin, Southern Great Basin especially, that have construction projects going on this year. Make sure you're looking for notice to airmen's or NOTAMs, and those can be found at the link below directly through the FAA. The current situation out here has been varying day to day. We have had systems that have moved through the region about once every week to once every other week, and they've brought in some varying temps. But overall, we have hot and very dry conditions. Fuel moistures are continuing to drop. Fire danger is continuing to increase, and we've already had some pretty large early season fires just over to the east in Utah and northern Arizona as well. So fires there have really been exhibiting high rates of spread, a lot of fire activity. They're really resisting suppression. For right now, there's been no measurable precip in June except for one 1/100th of an inch at the Pancake Raws. And you can kind of look at the chart on the right here, and fuel moistures have been low, and precip overall has been extremely low throughout the winter. You can see January and February had almost none. As far as the curing of the fuels, if you drive around the district, you'll see that the grasses are really starting to cure out. There may be some areas at higher elevations or areas further to the north where the grasses haven't yet fully cured, but they are getting there. Fire danger continues to be high, above the 80th percentile, and it's above average for this time of year. And there's a link here. If you'd like, you can take a look at Wildcat for the Las Vegas Interagency Communications Center and kind of get a better idea of what the current situation is and what kind of fires we've been having. As of right now, we still haven't seen a clear signal for monsoons, but we are predicting those will be here at some point. If you look on the table on the left here, you can see some fuel moistures represented from different sampling areas. And then also on the right here, taking a look at live fuel moistures for sagebrush, you can see they are starting to really drop off quite a bit. Still not quite at record lows, but we are right at about average right now. If you're managing an aircraft, or if you're an incident commander in the Southern Great Basin area, I'd recommend you take a look at the link listed here, and you can use the password and login listed down here, and it'll give you a good idea every morning where all the aircraft in the Great Basin are located. You can sort it by the type of aircraft, the location, or any other of the status you're interested in. Good useful information to know. May give you a little better of an idea how long it will take to get aircraft over to your fire. We've embedded videos for the Great Basin daily and also seasonal outlooks here. You can click these videos, they'll play direct in the presentation. These are really an excellent product, and they give you a pretty good idea of what you're going to be looking at throughout the next day to week, and even beyond with the seasonal outlook. While you're operating in southern Nevada, here's a list at the right here of all of the relevant fire weather zones. There is a specific fire weather zone forecast for each one of these. And then also in the link over here in the middle, there is an interactive fire weather map that NOAA puts out for us. Over these next 2 pages, these are the frequency lists for all of southern Nevada. They are also available on the Las Vegas Interagency Communication Center website. And the link for that, as well as the passwords, will be listed later in the presentation. Here's a simple phone contact list. There will be additional contact lists offered through Las Vegas Interagency Communication Center, and also in the primary Southern Great Basin in briefing packet. We do have pretty good repeater coverage across Nevada. You can see on the map on the right here kind of the different repeater locations. And then if you click this Google Drive link, it will take you to a geo-referenced PDF map with the frequencies in there. It may make it a little bit easier to grab a repeater if you're out in the field working. For Southern Nevada District Office, we do have a frequency list map, and you can find it at the link below and download it, or you can reference it here, and it shows you the areas, frequencies, and tone guards. I mentioned it a couple times throughout the briefing already. Las Vegas Communication Center, they host a pretty solid site of publications, intelligence, weather, etc. You can access it through this link, and then also I've included the username and password. Please note those are both case sensitive. Everything is lowercase. While you're on the district with any aircraft here, please make sure you're updating and reporting daily costs. The Zone Aviation Manager is RJ. I've put his email in, and then Las Vegas Dispatch also has a FireNet email. We don't have a dedicated web form or any other kind of a specific form for tracking this, but if you shoot one of them over the cost for the day, they would be very appreciative. Flight following is the same as it would be anywhere else. Make sure if you're flying, you are establishing positive flight following with dispatch, and also close it out when you return home. Southern Nevada has quite a few identified dip sites. Most of them are privately owned. We've gone through kind of a pre-land use agreement process to identify them. If you do need to use a dip site or use it as a draft site, whatever it is your crew is here doing, make sure you're running that through dispatch before you take any water out of it. We can have a land use agreement in place very quickly, and should be there for you to use. I've got maps of all of them listed at the right. There's 2 different links. And again, to access the list, I've provided the username and password below, and it is a case-sensitive username and password. For initial attack, we offer a digital as well as a paper copy initial attack fire size up or fire report sheet. You can access it through the Google Drive link below, and you can also get a couple of them from the duty officer when you check in. Along with the various local aviation assets we have in here, we'll go into the capabilities a bit. Mesquite Seat Base is typically capable of reloading 3 to 4 seats. They have a good operation and can really cut down on your turn times if you're on a fire and need retardant. If you're in the western part of the zone, Jean Airport can be activated. There's typically going to be about a 48-hour delay to have the equipment in place, but that can provide some retardant support to fires in the western area. For 2020, Cedar City is deactivated due to construction. That said, all of the large air tanker operations have been moved to St. George, Utah for the summer. They are able to load and return pretty large amount of air tankers out of there. Panaca, Nevada, up to the north, may also be activated for seat operations if needed. That'll be a similar situation to Jean. Would expect probably a 48-hour or more activation time. In addition to that, Las Vegas Helitac has an approved ops plan to use step procedures. We have used this in the last couple of years in Nevada. One of them was even a medevac situation, and very likely saved a life. So if there is any kind of a medical situation, be aware that you may not have to spend the time cutting in a perfect helispot or hiking people up or down a mountain to a better area. The Helitac crew here is trained and pretty proficient on this, and it can be a very helpful tool. In addition to that, Helitac, they're operating a Type 3 helicopter. Ely also has a Type 3 helicopter, and there's a variety of other cooperators in the area. The STEP protocols, if you're not familiar with them, basically are allowing our crews to enter or exit helicopters while in a hover, potentially with a single skid down, or just towing into a helispot. It's very useful for emergency response, or it can even be used for initial attack to get folks into maybe a tighter area. This is something our crews have been training on. They've really perfected this, and it's an excellent tool to be aware of if you're using one of the helicopters within Nevada, BLM that is. So some of the cooperators around here, we do work with Nevada Division of Forestry a good bit. They have an agreement with the Air National Guard. They have a hoist helicopter that can be used in emergencies. Nevada Division of Forestry does have one restricted aircraft, but there are MOUs in place. I believe it's for 3 of their aircraft. Clark County has a hoist-capable helicopter that's available through Metro Fire, and at some point we may have an agreement in place with the Air Force PJs out of Nellis Air Force Base to have an additional hoist-capable helicopter that we may be able to use at some point. So if you have any kind of a medical situation, don't wait. There's a lot of help that's very nearby that can be called on to get people out. The BLM state office in Nevada hosts annual updates to a pretty excellent geospatial PDF fire map collection. There's a couple different ways to access them. Probably the easiest is the Google Drive, or if you have ArcGIS online access, you can access them there. I've included both of those links below. These are great maps. You can throw them on your iPad, and they're really useful tools. If you don't have Venza Maps, I've included a link at the right, and it gives you the directions on how to install Venza, and then also how to log in with the BLM password so you have full access to the app. There's a few more links for useful maps for you while you're here. Fire and aviation atlases, 100K quads, fire facilities, and scooper accessible water bodies. These could be useful if you're here with a Helitac crew and are looking for a dip site that maybe is not identified in one of our other locations. There's quite a bit of fuel available throughout southern Nevada. You can see on this map here, Hunter low lead and jet fuel are available in all of the locations noted with a green airplane. So all the way down to Jean, all the way up to Mesquite, and quite a few places in between. If you need fuel, it is available. Most of these locations even have 24-hour card lock facilities, so you can even get some fuel there after hours or before hours. For regional trauma or burn centers, you can find them on the map link below. Vegas does have a burn center, and there are several trauma centers here. If there are any issues, this is a pretty short trip over to get help. For rotor wing, life flight, or medevac coverage, there are 2 different options within the Vegas area here. One is based out of Vegas, and the other would be based more to the east, but there's a good amount of overlap. You can find this map at the link below. Again, this will conclude the briefing here. I appreciate the time. If there's any questions you have, don't hesitate to reach out to the UAM, to the duty officer, or one of our other aviation resources within the district to get some more information. Thank you, and enjoy your time in southern Nevada.